let's talk about the 7 pillars. The 7 pillars to live plant strong. Number 1 is why we love plants. So I want you to know that we love plants because all nutrition starts and ends with plants. This is kind of the mother source of everything that is good and bountiful and plentiful in nutrition. It's plants. So this is where everything starts. It's plain and simple. Whole plant-based foods. Now, when I'm teaching people this, I have to let them know that we were raised thinking that the strong foods were the meat and the dairy and the heart-healthy oils. And we got to flip this script completely and make a nice paradigm shift, because the reality is that red meat, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy products, cheese, whole milk, skim milk, 2% milk, 1% milk, all these things are actually not healthy. They're not good for you. They're actually very, very much detrimental to our health. Whereas if we flip the script, what we're going to find is that it's the fruits and the vegetables and the whole grains that are actually the strong foods. And growing up, I thought that these were the kind of the weak foods, right? I mean, why do I want to eat all these foods? I was in love with everything that's in the red here. But as I told you earlier, I've been actually eating strong foods now for almost 37 years, and it has taken good care of me. So we're flipping the script. The weak foods are actually the strong foods, and what we thought were the strong foods are actually the weak foods. So I want you to know that anything that flaps a wing, wiggles a fin, paws a hoof, closes a clam, these have varying amounts of dietary cholesterol, saturated fat, and problematic animal protein. You just can't get away from it. It's there, it's inherent in all the muscle and the fat that's in animal products. So what I want to do right now is just kind of go through and let you know exactly how much cholesterol and saturated fat you're going to find in your average piece of red meat, chicken, salmon, and eggs. So red meat, on average, 70 milligrams of cholesterol per 3 ounces. 3 ounces is basically about the size of a deck of cards, 70 milligrams. And I want to make it very clear to you all that none of us need any kind of extemporaneous source of cholesterol in our diets. Our livers produce all the cholesterol that we need naturally, and so we don't need to be getting it. All right, so red meat on average is 70. A lot of us think that chicken is a much healthier source of meat and that it's less in cholesterol, less in saturated fat, especially that skinless, boneless chicken breast. But the reality is that chicken is 70 milligrams of cholesterol per 3 ounces as well. So it's the exact same amount as that red meat. And then many of us think that wild-caught salmon is God's gift to a healthy piece of flesh. And I can tell you right now that salmon is 60 milligrams of cholesterol per 3 ounces. So it's just 10 milligrams less than the red meat or the chicken. And so that's almost negligible. And then lastly, what we have is we have eggs. And we like to say that there's only 2 things wrong with the egg: the yolk and the white. And believe it or not, that egg yolk, that one egg yolk, has 212 milligrams of dietary cholesterol. That's the exact same amount as 2 Burger King Whoppers with cheese in one egg yolk. Think about that. Saturated fat. Your average piece of red meat is 40% saturated fat. When it comes to chicken's about 30% saturated fat. And we have no requirement as human beings for saturated fat. It's problematic on a lot of levels. It actually promotes tumors and cancers. It promotes heart disease, hardening of the arteries. It also promotes insulin resistance that leads to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So we're not a fan of any of these things. And then your average piece of salmon is 20% saturated fat, and the almighty egg is 20% saturated fat. So for these reasons, you can see we're not a fan of any kind of animal flesh whatsoever. Just a weak food, weak problematic food. Now let's talk about dairy for a second. The thing with dairy products is dairy products have the exact same DNA as animal products, just kind of in a different form. So we'll start with liquid meat, milk. 1 8-ounce glass of milk is 150 calories, but believe it or not, it's got the exact same amount of cholesterol as 4.5 strips of bacon and loaded with saturated fat. So we're not a fan. When it comes to ice cream, it's just fat and it's sugar. And obviously, I think we all know that ice cream is not a health promoting food. When it comes to yogurt, we refer to yogurt as runny meat. And the problem with yogurt is that it's loaded with all kinds of protein. And the vast majority of that protein that's in, for example, these Greek yogurts is coming from casein, casein. It is a growth accelerator that is put there by the mama cow to grow that baby cow as fast as possible. It represents 86% of the protein that's in dairy products. And believe it or not, it's also a tumor and cancer growth promoter. And we all have tumors and cancers in us, but our body's constantly defending it and killing these off. But what you're doing unwittingly when you're doing 3 to 4 to 5 servings of dairy products a day is you are fertilizing those dormant tumor and cancer cells with one of the most powerful growth accelerators that you could be putting into your mouth. And so for this reason, amongst many others, we are not a fan of yogurt, right? Runny meat. And then lastly, we got cheese. Cheese, we refer to cheese as basically dairy crack. It is a concentrated source of calories, of cholesterol, of saturated fat, of casein, of casomorphines that are low levels of opiates. Just to put it into perspective, 1 8-ounce glass of milk is 150 calories. 1 8-ounce glass of melted cheddar cheese is 960 calories. So almost 7x the number of calories that you're going to find in a glass of milk. So no wonder so many people say, I cannot give up my cheese. I'm addicted to cheese. And again, it's because it is loaded with all these different substances that light up your brain like a Christmas tree, and you cannot get enough. Again, it's low levels of opiates, just like morphine or something like that. All right, let's keep moving on. So cow's milk is really, it's a baby calf growth fluid, which is what Dr. Michael Clapper loves to say. And it was never intended for us as human beings. So that's Tom Green, a comedian. He would do some crazy stuff back in the day like this. All right, I've got a couple different people in this presentation that I ran into when I was doing book signings at Whole Food Market stores. This is Mary. And these are just some testimonials of people that have done the Engine 2 7-day rescue diet, where they followed the 7 pillars and they got some pretty phenomenal success. So let's hear from Mary.
Okay, here with Mary, spelled Merrie, and I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And Mary, what's happened to you since you've gone whole food plant strong?
Well, you wouldn't believe it, because a year ago I was 75 pounds heavier. I was on 80 units of insulin a day. I'm down to 10 now. And the fact that I have energy, my cholesterol went a half, I just couldn't believe it. And even my doctor, when she had my physical, kept saying, "What are you doing? Did you do bariatric surgery?" Didn't tell me. And I said, "You're my doctor." "No, I'm plant strong." She spent an hour wanting to know why, how, what was I doing the whole program. So it's been neat for her, because she goes, "I've never heard of anything like this." So it's pretty excited, very excited to continue to see what happens.
Well, that is very exciting. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
So what I love about Mary and what she said here is that her doctor took a true interest in what she had to say and her results. I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, "Yeah, you know, I lost all this weight. My cholesterol came down. I saw my doctor, and my doctor just said, 'Yep, interesting. Keep doing what you're doing.'" Whereas this doctor showed a genuine curiosity, and it sounds like we'll now pass this on to some of her other patients. So thank you, Mary, for that. Whoopsie. Let's see here. There we go. So our next pillar, pillar number 2, is why we really love whole plants. So what I'm talking about when I say whole plants, plants that are as close to grown as possible, that are minimally processed, like broccoli and grapes and different types of beans and potatoes and brown rice, different fruits, and whole grain pastas and whole grain breads that are minimally processed. I think you get the point there. Now, on the flip side, what I am not a fan of here are the plant-based junk food. So you can see here, moving from left to right, obviously we got French fries there. You know, French fries are the #1 source that Americans get potatoes into their bodies. And French fries are really, they're an abomination. We take the almighty potato that in 2008 was declared the vegetable of the year by the World Health Organization, and we absolutely desecrate it. We slice it up into little sticks. We put it down into the deep fryer. It now goes from being 3% fat to over 55% fat. And then we have the unmitigated gall to basically take the salt shaker, sprinkle the salt shaker all over it, and then we dip it in high fructose corn syrup laden ketchup. That is the #1 way that Americans get potatoes, which actually is probably the most popular vegetable that Americans consume. So, and then you've got these fake fractionated plant-based products, like you've got Diet cheese. It's basically 70% fat. The first and second ingredients are canola oil, and I believe it's palm oil. We've got all these vegan donuts that are everywhere right now, and it's just basically white sugar, white flour, and oil. Ice cream, these plant-based ice creams are everywhere. Ben & Jerry's I think now has 11 different flavors of plant-based ice creams, and they're using coconut as the base because it's got the cream feel. But of course, coconut is the #1 source of saturated fat, or I should say, has more saturated fat than any other food on the planet. And so this is not healthy. You've got your different types of veggie burgers, whether it's the Impossible Burger or the Beyond Meat Burger, and they're just basically Frankenstein burgers that don't have any whole food plant-based ingredients. We're talking coconut oil. We're talking canola oil. We are talking maltodextrin, pea protein extract. In the case of Impossible Burger, it's soy protein extract. These are just not health promoting plant-based products. And then of course, alcohol, I think there's some pretty definitive research right now to suggest that the safest amount of alcohol is the least amount of alcohol. And way too many Americans are having 1 to 2 to 3 glasses of wine or some sort of alcohol a day. And these are just empty calories that aren't taking your health to the next level. We have all these newfangled cereals that are purporting to be healthy when the reality is they're just a high sugar cereal that is a poser presenting to be healthy. We've got these buttery spreads like Earth Balance spread that's 100 calories per teaspoon, and it's just palm oil and canola oil. We've got all these chips that are out there, and they're typically 50 to 60% fat. And of course, we have the glorified candy bars posing as your Luna bars and other bars. So plant-based junk food is a real problem. And these foods are more and more littering the grocery store shelves. So we got to be very, very careful about how much of these we eat. And conversely, we want to make sure we're eating more of the whole plant-based foods.